Hello, everyone. This is Ira Robinson from Open Eyes Network. Before beginning the show, I wanted to give out a little bit of information. The show is the Red Pill Reality Show, which airs Saturday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at L&M Radio Network. With the permission of the host, Rascala Stefan, I am posting this archive onto YouTube for those that prefer to listen to the show that way. I was a guest on this show. We were talking exclusively about the Mandela Effect, and I thought that I would go ahead and post the show here for my viewers to enjoy. This is the full show, so it's a full 3 hours worth of information. The quality on my end is not the best because I was connecting up through a cellular phone, and it is not the highest quality, but it is very listenable. All of the music and commercials have been cut out, so you guys can just listen to it continuously through, and I hope that you guys enjoy the information. Again, if you want to listen to the full archive of the show, go to lnmradionetwork.com. That's where it's posted. Thank you.
Hello and welcome, everyone. It is the Red Pill Reality Show, and I am your host, Rascala, coming to you from sunny South Florida on the L&M Network. I am honored and privileged to have you with me tonight and listening to a topic that really had me questioning my very sanity just a couple of days ago. Was fortunate enough to have mentioned it on Michael Vera's show last night while Ira Robinson was there, and I have found myself a proverbial chest full of information, if you will, a treasure chest full of information, and I am really excited to be able to have him with me tonight, and we're going to talk about what he knows. Just a few things that I have run into have really flipped me out. Let me start out by saying this. What if you woke up tomorrow morning and you realized that something was different, but you couldn't put your finger on it? And then something that you know in your mind, that your memory is vivid, and you're absolutely sure, there is no doubt in your mind that what you remember is correct. What would happen? What would you think? How would you feel? What would be going through your mind when you wake up in the morning and you find out that something that you believe you were taught years ago, something that was written in stone, if you will, and you wake up and find out that no longer exists? Is that possible? Let me tell you what really freaked me out about this whole thing. I've had, over the last couple of months, probably 4 or 5 people tell me about this thing called the Mandela Effect. And I said, I got all these... I got my hands full with what's going on in this country. My God, our country's literally falling apart before us. I don't have time for this. This is nonsense. Not to discredit it, but I mean nonsense in the sense that it wasn't a priority for me. It didn't resonate with me. I'm not sure how to describe it to you. And then I think it was Thursday night that I again ran across a video talking about the Mandela Effect, and that how our reality is changing before our eyes, and that people will remember it and people will not remember it. And so, watching this video on Thursday night, one of the things that they had brought up about our past being changed is that even the written word, as we are transitioning through this timeline, even the written word is changing. Now, when I said this to a couple of my friends, they said, of course, they're changing it all the time, every time they go to print. And that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is a lot freakier than that. I have in my possession a Bible that I have had since 1992. And I vividly remember, this is why I'm questioning my own sanity. I have a vivid memory that I am absolutely sure that in that Bible, under Isaiah 11:6. And I'm going to paraphrase because I don't remember the exact wordings, but there was something to the effect of, the lion will lay down with the lamb. And in this video it said that this Mandela Effect, what's happening is that the written words, and they used this example in the Bible, are literally changing. Literally changing. Do you understand what I'm saying? How crazy is what I'm telling? I have a hard time, even now as I am telling you, it freaks me out. I'm sorry, it freaks me out. I mean, I've seen a lot of strange stuff in my life. I've seen things which I think were UFOs. I'm not sure. And I've witnessed some pretty tough stuff. I've had a friend die in my arms. I've had another friend of 40 some odd years. I held his hand as he took his last breath. I held my mom's hand as she took her last breath. I kissed my dad seconds after he passed away. I've been through some pretty interesting experiences, to say the least. But nothing is like what I'm telling you. I don't even know how to describe it to you. I have had this Bible in my possession since 1992. I know specifically the year because it was given to me. It was given to our family because we lost our home in 1992. And I remember going through this Bible and reading that the lion will lay down with the lamb. I can't tell you how, I just can't express to you how positive I am. I woke up, I went to bed Thursday night. I don't know if this ever happened to you, but I went to bed Thursday night. And I slept, but I damn sure didn't rest. I've had these experiences where your body's shot, man. Your body needs to rest, but your mind will not allow you to rest. Your body's like out of it, but your mind is going 100 miles an hour and will not shut down because something that it was just exposed to stretches your very reality to the very edges, almost snaps. That's what I felt like Friday morning when I woke up. Have I lost my mind? Am I lying to myself? Is my mind making things up? I called a couple of friends. I'm telling you, it shocked me. I called a couple of friends of mine up, Christian friends of mine up, and I said, do you remember ever being taught that somewhere in the Bible the lion? Oh, sure. They can't find it either in their Bibles. I remember seeing this. They're telling me, I remember seeing this. I said, what does it say now? It says the wolf will lay down with the lamb. And then in this video, now I had to take it with a grain of salt. In the video, they show pictures of the lion laying with the lamb, but the picture hasn't caught up with the text yet. The text has changed. The text says the wolf will lay down with the lamb. Now if that doesn't absolutely stretch your brain, are we living in a reality or not? I don't even know where to go. I don't. I'm telling you, I was going to, and I may later on, but I was going to speak about the cell towers and what the cell towers are doing. But this is really something that has just blown my mind. I can't express it to you in any other way. What if everything that we remember is wrong? What if, again, I'm referring back to this video that I watched, and I believe one of the articles I read, too, a while back, I believe the articles also alluded to this, and this is all tied into this CERN thing, this Hadron Collider thing that they've got going on. And, like Thursday night, I'm trying to sleep, and my mind's running, and Andrew Basaggio comes to my mind. And I'm going, I've heard this man said that he's gone back in time, and he's witnessed this and he's witnessed that, and he's done these things that just, stretch the imagination. I credit him. There are people that I have a personal friend of mine, a close friend of mine, who has been abducted. Now, when he tells other people what has happened, the majority of them don't believe him. I believe him because I've known him for quite some time. I believe him because I know the character of the man. I believe him because I totally believe that what he is telling me he believes, whether it actually happened or not, I can't tell you. I wasn't there. I can look in his eyes and I can tell you that he is being absolutely honest with what he is telling me, and that he has been abducted. Some people, it's just difficult to get across when you see the truth. So what happens when someone exposes something to you that is so wild and so crazy that you go, all right, he's off the deep end? I'm telling you, I called probably 5 or 6 of my friends, and one of them kept telling me to settle down. I didn't know how to act. I'm having a hard time right now expressing to you. What if there are some people on this planet that have gone back in time and literally changed things and come back to, or whatever, but they've gone back in time and they've changed something. And now all of that change is now taking effect. And it literally changes the word, the printed word in a book that I have had for 20 years, that I vividly remember it saying one thing, it now says something else. So if you've got a Bible, go take it. And if you remember what I'm saying to you, if you remember being taught, there are many other. When Ira comes on, I'm like, I'm not a drinking man, but I think I'm going to have a drink tonight to settle this. It is very difficult for me to wrap my mind around what I'm saying to you, unless you totally understand the ramifications of what I'm saying to you. It's just words. Our very reality that we are living, the history that has followed it, is literally being changed. Some of us remember one thing while others remember something else. How is that possible? So my question is, are our memories accurate, or are our memories inaccurate? I hope to find out here. We're going to be discussing this shortly. And I got to tell you, it's still freaking me out, even as I'm talking to you now. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, but it is still freaking me out. I swear, it's like I'm watching a movie almost. Like I'm watching a movie and the character has figured out something, and because you're watching the movie, you've known it all along, and all of a sudden the character figures it out and you watch that character just flip. That's what I feel like. I feel like that character right now going, holy moly, man. This is impossible. This can't be. How can the words in a Bible that I know I have had for all of this time, how can those words, either that or somebody's playing a very sick prank on me, a very sick prank. And I don't think it's a prank. That's why it has affected me in the way that it has. That's why I want to share this with you tonight. That's why I think I want other people's feedback from this. When I mentioned it to Ira says, I've been at this for a while. I know about all kinds of things. I just ran into a couple that kind of freaked me out. There's no telling what he's going to tell me. He's going to tell me tonight. But can you imagine that we are living in a, I want to say reality, but I don't know that it's a reality anymore. I've heard scientists say that some scientists believe that we live in a program, almost like a computer program. And others feel as though we live in a very fluid environment, and that nothing is what is the word that it's another word for stable, and I can't think of what it is, but nothing is stable. I can't think of the word that they use. So anything can be changed at any given time, provided you know the rule or however to do that. But that anything can change, and anything from for example, what I'm talking about, from our past being changed to our future being changed. As we're on a particular timeline, the entire timeline is shifting over into something else completely different. And now, with watching this video and then being subjected to this personally, this is like, wow, this is, I don't know. If you've got a Bible, go look at your Bible and tell me if your Bible says lion and lamb or it says wolf. Because in everything that is within me, I'm telling you as sure as I can be. I remember specifically it saying the lion and the lamb. There will come a day when the lion and the lamb will lay down together, representing peace, generally speaking, peace. And now it says the wolf and the lamb. There are many times in the Bible when the Lord or God is referred to symbolically as the lion. Why would it now say wolf? I got to tell you, I don't remember. My mind, maybe it's me. My mind says I don't remember anywhere in the scriptures that mentioned wolves and lambs together. There are places, I believe, that say people will act ravenous like wolves, things of that nature, but it wasn't anywhere that I ever remember a wolf was going to be laying with a lamb. A wolf wasn't considered to be a king. A wolf is worthy of the title, but they don't refer to wolves as kings. They refer to lions as kings. And now my Bible says wolf. I'm telling you, somebody's messing with us really bad. Really bad. And tonight I hope to share with you and hopefully have a better idea myself of just what the heck is going on. So I'm going to play a song for you that I found quite interesting. Those of you who know anything about me know that I have a Middle Eastern background. And I found this song I thought was quite interesting. So I'm going to play this for you just to show you that Arabs can have some rock and roll in them as well. And you are listening to the Red Pill Reality Show, and I am your host, Riscala, coming to you from sunny South Florida on the LNM Network. Thank you for taking time.
This is your last chance.
Oh, listen.
After this
is Grandpa.
There is no turning back.
This is true.
You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
And that's what you're going to get here, is the truth. And tonight, I have the honor and the privilege of having the one and only Ira Robinson with me. And are you there, Ira? Let me see if I can get you to come up here.
Testing. Can you hear me now?
A little bit of a connection problem. Okay. Are you? And once again, we have Ira with us. So welcome, Ira.
Hi there. How you doing tonight?
I'm hanging in there, my friend, and I am kind of excited to hear what you're going to tell me about this Mandela Effect.
I wanted to comment a little bit with what you were talking about at the beginning of the show about the situation where you basically woke up one day and said, whoa, wait a minute, things have changed. I had that experience myself. It was about 7 years ago when I first, I think, got introduced into the whole Mandela Effect situation. Like when I started kind of awakening to it myself and started noticing changes going on. It didn't really have that name at that point, though. It didn't have anything really ascribed to it. I just thought, okay, maybe I'm remembering things a little weird. And as time passed and time progressed and I started noticing more and more of these changes happening, I said to myself, okay, there's something that's going on here. And I started communicating with other people that I had discovered ended up having this kind of same situation happening as well. And just kind of snowballed from there. As far as research goes, it's something that I've been endlessly fascinated with and endlessly confused with at the same time, I guess you could say.
Well, I'm questioning my own sanity at that point. So tell me some of the things that you have run into as well.
Sure. So, biblically speaking, now you were talking about the Lion and the Lamb, and that one is a big one. I think a lot of people now are focusing on that one because I think that's actually a recent change, you could say.
Mm-hmm.
Another recent change, biblically speaking, that I've run across is, okay, let me posit to you this question. The Lord's Prayer. You know the Lord's Prayer. I'm sure you got it memorized quite extensive.
Yep.
So, in the Lord's Prayer, when it talks about the forgiveness issue, can you repeat to me what you learned the Lord's Prayer says?
I think the word trespasses was originally used, as I remember it. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Is that what you're referring to?
That is indeed. That is what I learned. That is what many people out there learned. In fact, you can still see images, videos, people talking about it, that it is always trespasses. If you look in the Bible now, it's debts and debtors. So forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors.
Yeah.
That's a pretty drastic change.
Yeah. Wow.
So instead of saying forgive us our sins, it's been warped and changed now to essentially say we're in debt. We have a debt system, kind of going with that whole debt system idea that we're in, you see, falling prey right into it.
Wow.
These little changes, I think they're there. Okay, I guess let me explain things in a little bit of this way to introduce the topic really well. When it comes to the Mandela Effect issue, the best way to put it is that reality has not changed for those that are here and have always been in this reality. So I think what's happened is essentially we've shifted from one reality into another, but only some of us, only some people are basically here from somewhere else, for whatever reason that may be. And this is only one possible explanation for things, but it's kind of one that I find fits comfortably in my brain, basically. But the people that know it, like, for example, know it as the wolf shall dwell with the lamb, or forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors, they've always been aware of that. They've always had that as their reality. But there are, again, some of us that have, I think, come from other places, maybe, for instance, that are here now and are remembering things differently as opposed to, having our reality overwritten completely. And we can get involved in that conversation a little bit later on as far as more deeply on that kind of stuff is concerned, if you'd like.
Yeah. Give me a second, because I'm getting information back that you're a little muffled, and I do hear you a little muffled on my end, and I'm trying to figure out if it's me or if it's you.
Okay. It should be because we're doing it through the cell phone?
It may be. It could be because of the cell phone, yeah. How about try calling me back? Let me see if it's any better if you call me back.
I can do that.
All right. He's going to call right back. Please stay tuned. We're not going to go anywhere. Hopefully, we'll get a little clearer on the voice for Ira. This is, I don't know about you. This is totally freaks me out. Let's see. All right, Ira. Let's try it again.
Okay, try number 2. Is this a little bit better for you?
Much better.
Okay, great.
Okay, let's see. Okay, so go ahead. What were you going to tell us about next?
Well, I was going to bring up another Mandela Effect example for you guys. So this one is a very deeply personal one to me. And in my conversations that I've had with other people that have experienced different Mandela Effect things, I've run across others that have experienced this same thing too. So I think it's a thing. I think it's one of the changes that was occurring. In the 1990s, there was a gentleman who was rather popular by the name of Billy Graham. Do you know Billy Graham?
Yep.
So you're familiar with Billy Graham. I'm sure everybody is. I kind of do that as a little bit of a sarcastic joke, but everybody seems to know who Billy Graham is. He's America's preacher. He's one of the most well-known evangelists out there. Well, in the 1990s, I remember very distinctly Billy Graham died. He died actually of a heart attack, and a state funeral was held for him. Now, my mother and my father both adored Billy Graham. They loved the guy. They loved his preaching. They loved everything about him. When he passed away, this state funeral was held for him. Heads of state came to the funeral. Presidents, both past and present, came to the funeral. Everybody basically came, celebrities, on and on and on. They all came to this funeral that was broadcast on ABC TV. My mother and I sat on the couch next to each other, and I sat there as she wept in grief over the passing of this preacher. I remember after the funeral was done and some time had passed, Billy Graham's son took over the ministry, and it was against the wishes of the board of directors of the Billy Graham Foundation because of the checkered past that his son has. They didn't think that he would be the best fit for it. But he went on ahead and took it over anyways, regardless. So I remember all of these things occurring. And yet, in this time and place right here, right now, Billy Graham is alive and well and actually still doing preaching sometimes. So how is it that I can remember such a distinct thing, such a perfect memory of all of this that occurred, and yet this man is still alive? Unless you account for either I'm crazy, I'm lying, or I'm from a different reality altogether.
That's what blows my mind. That's what's got me stuttering. I don't know. I just kind of babble. How can that be?
Some of the claims with it, Riscala, are that those who are experiencing the Mandela Effect are just misremembering things.
Yeah.
And I can say yes, on some cases that's possible. However, in this case in particular with mine, this example that I'm giving, you don't forget the times that your mother cried. You don't forget the times that your mother cried in front of you.
Yeah.
It's just not. It's not going to happen. It's such a changing event for a child to sit there as his mother weeps, especially if it's in grief or something.
I think I'll probably go over the edge when they tell me that JFK is still alive, or JFK never got murdered.
Yeah, you and me both.
Oh, man.
You and me both on that one.
So what do you think, my theory, which I have just basically a guess at this point, is that someone was able to go back in time and make a change of some sort, and now that change is coming to fruition. That change is now materializing. So what do you think would happen if somebody went back and somehow warned JFK about what was going on, and he didn't end up getting assassinated? Does that mean I can't even wrap my mind around it. Does that mean that the reality we're living in is not, it's a different reality than the reality that, would he still be alive today? I'm telling you, there's so many questions running through my mind. I can't even pick one out to ask you, properly. It's crazy.
I definitely understand the conundrum for sure. This is the same kind of experience that I had when I first started going through all of this too. And I think it's a common experience for everybody that's now being introduced into the Mandela Effect.
Yeah, and Mandela, the reason they call it the Mandela Effect is there are those of us who remember this guy dying in prison.
Right. I was actually just about to go into that because I saw a couple of questions were coming in from the chat room as to the the reason why it's called the Mandela Effect. So, yeah, like you said, some people remember Mandela, Nelson Mandela, the president of Africa, dying in prison, and that was what started the whole apartheid process happening. However, in this reality that we're in now, and I'm one of those that remembers that he died in prison. I was educated on it, as a youth. This was the story that was told. But in this reality that we're in, he actually just died very recently, and he was released from prison those years ago, and that's what fomented the changes to occur.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, because that was such a big one, and a lot of people remember him being actually dead in prison. That's kind of where the name Mandela Effect came from. It just kind of got attached to it, and it snowballed from there, basically.
I want to tell you how this is how crazy it is. I remember him dying in prison, and I remember then him getting out of prison and becoming the president and all that. And I thought to myself, I remember thinking to myself, I thought he died in prison. And then I just kind of brushed it off like, oh, well. How many other things have I, you start questioning that. How many other things have you done? And just kind of brushed it off when you thought, oh, well, maybe I just heard wrong, or it was misreported, or, you just kind of write it off as like, no big deal. When in fact it's
more than likely many. What happens is, our brains, they have this duality basically going on, where you've got one memory and then you've got another memory that are competing with each other. And if you kind of put forth an energy saying, okay, I must have just misremembered it, that other one basically just gets erased. It's gone. And you don't really ever think about it again.
Wow.
But if you latch onto it and you hold on to it, then you've got both those memories that are congruent together. So that kind of reaches into where my theories, as far as this whole reason why it's changing, occurs. If you'd like, I can go into that now, or we can hold that for later, whichever direction you want to go.
Yeah, no, let's. Yeah, I want to know. How, okay, tell me why, and then maybe I can figure out how, or I'll have a better idea.
Okay. So one of the theories that I have is that science has shown that we do live basically in what you would consider to be a multiverse, or multiple dimensions, multiple universes that are kind of all closely matching or closely tied together. I liken it to the foam on a beach. When the waves come into the beach and you see the foam that's there, there's all these little bubbles that make up the foam.
Yep.
I kind of look at the universe as working that same way, that there's multiple bubbles, and each one of these bubbles is a dimension that the universe is contained within. And each of these dimensions, they are differences in reality. So like, okay, as an example, let's say one day you're trying to decide between having vanilla ice cream or chocolate ice cream. And you decide to have chocolate ice cream. Well, the way that we know things work is that there's a universe that's actually created that you did choose to have the vanilla ice cream instead, and the universe then progresses forward from there as it branches off, and it becomes its own reality, so to speak. But then that one that you were in right now, where you had chocolate, that also exists at the same time. Okay, so does that make sense so far?
Okay, this is there's a scientific term for this, and I'm trying to remember what it's called. It's the what the heck is it called? Theory? Huh?
The multiverse theory.
Yeah, but they don't call it. There's something else you go ahead, and it'll come to mind here in a minute.
Okay. So.
Duality? I think it's called duality. Maybe that's what I'm talking about.
Duality, yeah, that's one aspect of it. Yep. I think one of the things that occurs is okay. We know, like with computer systems, there's sort of data saving processes that happen where the hard drive gets defragmented, old files get deleted, everything kind of gets shoved together nicely so that the computer can access everything quickly, right? Mm-hmm. I think that the universe kind of has its own universal hard drive, so to speak, where all the information and data is stored. And in order to clean up data or to clean house, different dimensions that are kind of closely tied together. So, for instance, in the universes that I gave as an example, where you had chocolate or vanilla ice cream, if the only differences in that universe was that you had vanilla ice cream instead of chocolate, that's kind of a waste of space. You know, it's a very minuscule thing in the universal order of things, right? So in order to save data, I think that the universes, they kind of crash together. The dimensions, they kind of crash together, and the bubbles pop, I guess you could say, so that those no longer exist, and they just kind of come together into one reality. And then what happens to the people then that are within these dimensions, basically, it's kind of a consensus reality situation where if more people, for instance, believed that Nelson Mandela died in prison than escaped from prison, then Nelson Mandela died in prison. And that reality is programmed and overwritten into the memories of everybody who has now crashed into that dimension.
Holy crap.
But if more people, kind of a consensus reality, if more people, though, believe that he died just a few years ago, then that's the reality that is the quote-unquote true.
So let me go back, because this is, I keep thinking about it. What do you think would happen if somebody went back and somehow told JFK that, they're going to do you in, buddy, and you better find a way to whatever, so he ends up not being assassinated? How would that move forward in our reality? He's already gone, so we would never recognize him, or it wouldn't show up in our reality. It
wouldn't show up in the reality in. I think the way that it works is, as far as this whole dimension crashing kind of theory of mine, I think the way that it works is that the dimensions that are much further apart from each other will never crash into each other. So in a reality where Hitler won or two and everything's Nazi, you wouldn't wake up in a world that's like that, because you would immediately know everything is different. It would basically would crash the hard drive.
And the distance apart would represent the differences, the numbers of differences.
Correct. Yeah, you could look at them as all being lined up in rows, basically.
Okay.
So I think what would happen is, basically, if somebody was to do that, everything in reality would basically, change drastically, and people would notice it, and it would fail. I think that it's kind of got a safeguard or a fail-safe that's in place to prevent that kind of thing from happening. However, I will add, there is a reality, or multiple, millions of realities, where JFK did not die during that assassination. So every possibility of everything that could have ever occurred in history is actually real in a reality somewhere.
No, my mind was already messed up. Thank you. I appreciate that. Every possibility, you believe that every possibility that can happen happens within its own dimension, its own reality.
That's correct. Yeah, and if you look into quantum science actually does support that kind of argument with things. Because with quantum science, if you kind of look into the details as far as how quantum mechanics works, you have this thing that's called the observer effect, and we'll actually get into that even more later on an alternate theory that I have with things.
Yeah, I know. I'm familiar with it, but I want you to explain it for those who don't know it.
Right. So those out there that aren't aware of things, basically with the observer effect, what it determines is all possibilities exist at all moments in time. They're just waiting to happen. And what occurs is basically the event or the moment in time is observed, and that becomes solidified and quote-unquote real. But until something is observed, all possibilities exist. So what quantum mechanics basically says is that in this quantum theory, all possibilities, all things have been observed. So whether or not we're aware of those realities being real or not doesn't matter. In some other dimension, they were observed, and those things did take place.
Yeah, I was thinking of something else. I was thinking of when scientists shot a photon through a particular object. Let's say they shot it through a round hole, and they would shoot, hundreds of thousands of these through this hole, and it would come out the other side, and it would have a particular pattern to it. And then when they would observe it and do the same exact thing, it would change. Everything would change, as though the photons themselves knew when they were being watched. And when you think about a photon is a particle of light. So that the consensus was, when you get down to where there's nothing left, when you're beyond the realm of atoms, the only thing left is consciousness, because even the light recognizes when it's being observed.
Correct. Absolutely correct. That's the slit experiment is what it was called. For those that want to look it up, it's absolutely fascinating. I love the information that came out of that little
experiment. That's kind of freaky, but when I wake up and I realize that the reality I'm living may not be the reality I'm living, that's freaky.
There's a lot of really spiritual and esoteric concepts with all of this too, which we can, get into in a little while too. But that's kind of like my first theory. That's IRA theory prime, I guess, is this whole multiverse idea. Basically what we're doing is, people like you and me that have noticed these differences, we're actually from one of these alternative realities that it was that way, but we've been crashed into this one, for whatever reason. And I think that what I've noticed is that people that have had experiences somehow with the other side in some way seem to be those that end up noticing this whole Mandela effect. So, for instance, my wife, she's noticed it because she's had a near-death experience. There's like a tweaking of the consciousness that happens when you experience something on the other side. So, a near-death experience, encountering ghosts, anything along those lines, some kind of psychic, ability, whatever the case may be. Something where you're dealing with the woo-woo side effects of things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's those people that tend, I think, to have the notice of the Mandela effect, because the consciousness gets tweaked to notice things that aren't quite normal.
So,
if that makes sense to you.
What else have you noticed? I mean, one of the things that they brought up in this video was cartoons that I remember, and I definitely remember them being called the Flintstones, Flintstones,
Yes.
and now they're referred to as the Flintstones.
Flintstone, right? There's no T at the end of Flint. They were absolutely Flintstones. It makes no sense to call them Flintstones.
Right.
They were Flintstones based upon the fact that they were Stone Age family.
Right.
You see, which used flint as their tool. So yeah, that's one change as well. Another one, as far as kind of pop culture kind of stuff like you're talking about there is concerned, is the Berenstein Bears. So you know the Berenstein Bears, correct?
I've heard of them. That's one I saw the post about that, but I'm not familiar with them, with the spelling itself.
Okay, so for those that are out there listening, I want you to think in your memories for a moment and think of the Berenstein Bears. Their name, Berenstein Bears, is it spelled Berenstein or Stein? Now, for me and many other people, it's Stein. It's spelled as Stein, so like a beer stein or something like that is how it's spelled. And I remember it very distinctly. I read these books to my kids. I loved reading these books to my kids. I showed them the videos, that were created for it, and it was always Berenstein Bears. However, in this reality that we're in right now, it's Berenstain Bears.
And what freaks me out is the books, the printed word is changed accordingly. I think that's really what I'm having a difficult time wrapping my mind around. Like I said earlier, I've had this Bible since 92. I've had this Bible. In August of 92, this Bible was given to us because we lost our home in Hurricane Andrew in South Florida. And I remember reading in this Bible many, many times. And I specifically remember the lion will lay down with the lamb. Yet, when I go and look in the same Bible that I've had for all of these years, that word is not there anymore. And I tell you, even now, the hairs on my body stand up when I think about it. It's just freaky. So what I was going to ask you is, because according to this video and a couple of the articles that I read, they're attributing much of this exposure, that it's always been there, I guess, but this exposure now, they're attributing much of this to the CERN collider, this thing where they're colliding these elements and trying to open these different dimensions. How do you feel about that?
Well, that goes into my second theory.
Okay.
That goes into my alternative theory. So this is another possibility. I'll go ahead and just get into it here for you. This is a possibility, and I think that it's on an equal level of possibility as the first theory that I gave. So I think it could be one or the other, basically. And I'm just not sure which one yet. I've thought of the first one for a longer period of time, so I've got kind of like a closer heart to that one, just because it's the one that I've been the most comfortable with in my brain for such a long time.
Uh-huh.
But this other alternative theory that I'm about to give you, I think actually has more credence overall, and it has a much darker attribution to it.
Oh, boy. Okay.
So here's the deal. Google. Google. Everybody's familiar with Google. One of the things that Google has is a quantum computer. This quantum computer that they have is called D-Wave. D-Wave computer is different than normal computers. Normal computers, are the ones that you have sitting on your desktop or your laptop or even your phone. The smartphones, they work in the same way too. Same processors, same thought into how they're calculating everything. They think in ones and zeros, and it's a very linear process. One after the other of data coming in will be processed as either 1 or 0. It's a very linear process.
Mm-hmm.
Now, quantum computer, this D-Wave computer, is able to think in 4 different processing modes. So it can think in 1, it can think in 0, just like a regular computer can, but it can also think in 1 and 0 at the same time, so both, and it can also think in neither. So it can do 1, 0, 1, 0, or neither. So what this does is basically it allows the computer to think 3-dimensionally. They actually have an artificial intelligence that's attached to this D-Wave computer. It's able to think in 3 dimensions, so it's able to think backwards and forwards, up and down. So it can go back in its calculations and recalculate things if it so desires. And it's capable of processing billions of processes per second. I mean, this thing is just, wow. It is one hell of an amazing piece of technology. I'll just put it that way. As a computer geek,
What are they doing with this thing?
Well, it's what they use basically to process all of the information and gathering that's done by Google. So all of the different Google platforms, they're all tied to D-Wave. All of the Google searches, they're all tied to D-Wave. All of the spider crawlings that they do on every website that's out there, that's all attached to this D-Wave computer. And it's always thinking, it's always active, it's always seeking out and processing every bit of data that's known to mankind and then some.
Oh, great. Wow.
Now, there's one other aspect of this as well that is going to get to where I'm going with all of this. It has in storage bytes that are greater than the number of subatomic particles in the known universe.
Huh? Say that again? It has in storage what?
The number of bytes that are greater than the number of subatomic particles that are in the known universe.
So what is that number?
It is vast. It's literally it's up in the deca quadra frickin' hedron. It's kind of, numbers.
Wow.
It's just absolutely immense. Okay. And with this computer, basically, what they do with the data to get it to work correctly in this quantum computing environment is they have basically quantum entangled all of these bits of data to this processing unit so that it's able to tweak changes in the data on the fly heuristically at an immense rate. I mean, much more than, just writing on a hard drive would be considered.
Wow.
It could write, basically, it could change every bit of data at once because it's all entangled together within itself. So it could queue a change to be done in the bits of data, and it would be sent out as a signal. Because with quantum entanglement, I don't know if you know this or not, but with quantum entanglement, what they found is that two molecules or atoms that are connected together, two particles that are connected together, quantumly entangled, if you do something to one of them, it happens to the other one.
That's what I was trying to think of earlier. Entanglement. Yeah, entanglement. Right. Yep.
So these bits of data are entangled to this processing unit. Now, only one other place on the planet right now has D-Wave computer. Can you guess which one?
Russia.
Nope.
Israel.
Nope.
Wow. China.
CERN.
CERN. Oh, my God.
CERN is the only other one that has D-Wave computer, and they've done the exact same thing. In fact, Google's D-Wave and CERN's D-Wave are connected together. They're tied together. So my alternative theory with this stuff is that they have basically, through this quantum computing system, they have entangled all of the subatomic particles in the known universe. And with those subatomic particles entangled to this computer system, if they want to do a tweak to reality, all they have to do is tell the computer system what they want to have tweaked. And it will be tweaked because everything is tied to it. And all realities, once again, going back to the quantum science of things, all realities, all things are existent at all times until it's observed. And with this computer system, it is capable of observing every possibility that exists at every moment in time. So it becomes the observer, the uber observer, the observer of every possibility of everything all at once, all the time.
Holy crud. Where did you find out about this? When you're telling me about this thing, it started to occur to me, like if I do a Google search on whatever, it'll say umpteen million, results in 5.5 seconds or something. And I thought to myself, how can they do that? Where's all that? How so it's got to be something like you're talking about, because you search for anything on Google and see what your results are and how fast they come back. That's got to be one super duper, heavy duty computing going on.
Yeah. In fact, that 5 seconds worth of time that it took to get, that information back to you is actually more attributed to the latency and lag of the internet for your computer to send the message to Google's system to then have Google send it to central processing that D-Wave, and then that packet to be sent back to you. That's more attributed to the actual latency with it all.
Wow.
It's actually pretty instantaneous as far as its searching ability is concerned. I mean, it's easy to do. To that kind of a computing system, that would be like our computers basically calculating 1 + 1.
Wow. So imagine if they would take that technology and instead of spying on us, using it to help mankind. What kind of a future would we have then? Gee.
It would be amazing. It would be absolutely amazing. But they, again, like I said, there's kind of a dark attribution to all of this. I think they're using it for nefarious purposes.
Yeah.
I wonder, the thing that I think of as far as this kind of theory with it all is concerned is I wonder if those of us that are experiencing the Mandela Effect and we're seeing these changes occur, I wonder if it's essentially these little small tweaks that they're doing is more of a beta test to see how much they can change reality and how much people are going to notice those changes in reality.
Wow.
Before they do something big.
Wow. I'm wondering now about, you hear about the Jews, the Holocaust, and a lot of the Arab countries, they promote that never really happened, that it wasn't 6 million Jews. So I'm wondering now if this is all if this is sometime in the future, am I going to wake up and go, yeah, the 6 million? No, they didn't. Show me where it says that in history. Oh, it's written right. What? Oh, Lord have mercy. I'll tell you, that's crazy.
The way that I look the way that I look at things with this theory of mine is, we know that subatomic particles, they're not limited by time and space, basically. So if they wanted to alter reality, they could change the entire configuration of the Earth, and it would take less than a second for it to do. It would take less than a blink of an eye for it to do.
Wow.
And I kind of, again, going into the esoteric of things, in the twinkling of an eye, everything changes, right?
Wow.
Maybe we were warned about these things. We were warned about a great deception that would be coming that would deceive the very elect, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I said the same thing to I called a pastor. Because I was freaking out so bad, and I haven't spoken to this man in a while, but he's a good friend of mine. I love him dearly. And I said to him, do you remember, and this video that I watched said that people's memories, even their memories, is going to be different.
Oh, absolutely. I said, they're completely overwritten. I
asked him, I said, do you remember where it says in the Bible where it says the lion will lay down with the lamb? He says, no, that didn't say that in the Bible. I said, I called him by his name. I said, it does. I remember, I can't tell you how many Bible studies I've been at, and that was a very common thing that we would say, because it represented to us, a day of that peace will finally be on this planet, that the predator will lay down with the prey, and both shall live in peace, and he says to me, no, it doesn't say that, it says the wolf. I went, oh my God. Right.
And, that was an important aspect of the prophecy was, the lion was a representation of the Lion of Judah, this whole predator kind of thing motif that they had as far as ancient Judah was concerned, or Judea was concerned. So you have this Lion of Judea, and you have the lamb as the sacrificial lamb that was being placed before the people in the form of Jesus Christ, and you have them basically combining into one as the Messiah figure. So literally the embodiment of the Lion of Judea with the sacrificial lamb. That was Christ that was being predicted there. So what they've done by tweaking this difference is they have removed Christ from that prophecy.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, that's literally what happened with that.
Wow. That's just... I still can't wrap my mind around that. Even a pastor, even if this man that I've known for, 6-7 years, even his memory has been changed. I'm not telling you that I'm still having a hard time understanding how the hell this is even possible. I mean, I know, I can visualize and I can somewhat understand what you've described with the different multiverses and depending upon the differences would gear how far or close together they are. I can somewhat understand that, but when you're living it, when it actually happens to you and you're witnessing it, I don't it's everything. It goes. I shouldn't be surprised, but to me, what I experienced Friday morning was impossible. It is impossible for me to have a book in my possession all these years, and I know that it said something. I'm sure of it, and then I find out that something has happened, and I open the same book up that I've had for all these years, and the words are different. The words are not even close to being. It wasn't like, it said the lion and now it says lions, or now it says tiger. Heck no, it's the wolf. And to me, scripturally, a wolf never represented. Say it again.
I was just going to say that's a whole other thing too, because of the wolf in the sheep's clothing that we're warned about. Correct?
Yeah. The wolf never represented royalty. The wolf never represented kingdom. The lion has always been known as the king of the jungle. The wolf, like I said earlier, the wolf is he's worthy maybe of the title, but nobody refers to him of that, and he's not thought of in that way. The lion is. So to me, it's just like, again, it's mind-boggling. I look at this. It
destroys the allegory.
Wow.
It destroys allegory is what it does. And I'll tell you my own personal experience with that particular verse too, Riscala. I went through the same thing with that discovery too. I remember I've got very distinct memories. I studied that prophecy a lot. I was big on Isaiah. I loved Isaiah. I loved all the words that he had to say. You know, they were very fascinating to me. And I remember this Bible that I've got sitting right over here by me. I remember taking my yellow highlighter pen and marking that verse and ruminating on it as I was doing it, you know, meditating upon that verse as I was doing it. That right there is in my memory. I see it on the page. It's right there in my mind. But I see my hand doing it because it was such an important aspect of things to me. And yet now I look at that page in my Bible and I look at it and I think, this doesn't even look the same on the page. The page is looking different because of that verse different.
Wow. So not only the printing has changed, the actual physical makeup of the paper itself is different.
Right. the way that the words are on the page, it's not the same. It's not. This is not the same. But I've had this Bible all along. I've not. You know, it's not different Bible. It's the same book. You know, it's the same one that I've had for all these years. But reality has been tweaked into a different configuration.
So, I mean, with stuff like the Bible and those of us that remember this stuff happening, I wonder what other parts of our memories or what other parts of our reality have they you know, messed with? Have they tweaked or have they changed? You know,
I've got some examples.
Yeah,
I've got some other examples for you if you'd like.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're of an older generation. You might remember this a little bit more clearly than most of the people that I speak to about this, because you know a lot of people that I speak to about this are kind of like 30 and younger, basically. So, do you remember years ago there was this situation of the Lindbergh baby?
Yeah.
Okay, so I know I'm kind of hitting you with this out of nowhere, but as far as the Lindbergh baby is concerned, what do you remember about that situation?
That the child was kidnapped and never found.
So kidnapped and never found.
That's what I'm positive about the kidnapped, and either it was never found or it was found dead. But I think it was never. I'm almost certain it was kidnapped and never found.
So I remember when I was younger watching one of my favorite TV shows, Unsolved Mysteries. Loved that show.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing episodes of that show where they would talk about the Lindbergh baby as being an unsolved mystery. Nobody knew what happened to this baby. It had disappeared in 1921, if I remember correctly. I've got it here on my notes, actually. Let me see. Sorry. Shoot. No, I guess I don't have it on my notes. I did, and apparently they've changed. So I think it was 1921 that the Lindbergh baby was abducted and disappeared and was never found. Again, Unsolved Mysteries had an episode on it. The Simpsons had a reference to it. Abe Simpson, and in one of the episodes, he came out and shouted, "I am the Lindbergh baby," you know, like he'd been missing and now found, right? Okay, so in this reality that we're in, the baby was abducted, was found murdered 2 weeks later, and the man that did the murder and the kidnapping was executed in an electric chair.
I don't know. I don't remember anything like that.
See,
they
exactly.
What I remember is, I usually when I think about something and I'm not certain, usually my first answer is the most accurate. And if you recall, my first answer was kidnapped and never found. And when you were saying about they found the guy and he got executed or whatever, my first response to that was no. My memory tells me the child was kidnapped, never found, and that was it. There was nobody ever suspected, nothing. It was just one of those black hole things where that's it. That's what happened. The child was kidnapped, and we don't know.
It's been an unsolved mystery ever since. Yes, exactly. And like I said, you know, even The Simpsons right now, if you were to watch this episode of The Simpsons, you would see Abe Simpson, you know, Homer Simpson's father, referring to himself as being the Lindbergh baby. Now, if he had been kidnapped, killed, and the guy that did it was executed, why would that still be such a mystery? Why would that reference be there in The Simpsons?
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Wow.
So,
You know,
that's the...
whoa, I don't know what happened there. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, because we just had a glitch for a second there. It completely threw me off, and I don't know what I was going to ask you now. Oh, The Simpsons. The Simpsons, I am finding that this show, The Simpsons, is almost like a speaker for this small group of people that control everything. Through The Simpsons, they tell you about future events and things that are going to happen. You know, what I found really freaky about, not to get off the subject, but this is kind of a parallel subject. I saw, now I don't watch The Simpsons, I got to tell you, but I see videos, you know, and I rarely watch TV, but I see the videos that they post online. And I saw this video where they showed The Simpsons and Donald Trump walking down or going down an escalator or walking down some stairs, waving in a certain pattern. And then here it is years later, he's going down an escalator or downstairs or something, and he's waving. It's almost, and this was years prior, many years before.
There was an episode of The Simpsons where Mr. Burns is standing outside of a mansion, and they are bulldozing part of the mansion, and he's like, oh, "That's the Scalia bedroom."
Wow. Yeah. So I think they use that as a speaker, so to say, you know, to get their message to people many times I say sometimes it's encrypted and sometimes it's just right in your face. They don't care. But I believe that they're using that to send messages out. You know, I don't know this for certain. Maybe you do. There was one of the episodes came out where Prince died in one of the episodes.
Yep, I remember that one. Yep.
So
I watched The Simpsons with my wife. My wife has been a huge fan of them. Since she was a little tiny girl, so she watches it all the time.
Wow. So let me go back to this computer you were talking about with regard to it and how it's connected to this collider.
Okay.
To your knowledge, have they succeeded in getting any? Because I hear all kinds of things. Have they succeeded in getting anywhere with this thing? Have they reached any kind of goal with it?
They are currently they do about 1 billion particle collisions per second, and they have come up with a lot of really weird discoveries, to say the least. One of the weird discoveries is that they're finding that there is error correction built into the universe.
What is that?
So this was an extension of string theory. In string theory, there's a set of calculations and equations that they found to be embedded within string theory, and so CERN was kind of doing tests with this, and they proved it out. What they found is that basically there is an equation in the universe where the universe basically kind of acts as a data store, or to make sure that the rest of the calculations are correct. And this equation that they discovered is actually the same equation, like to a T, 100% the same equation that is used on the internet as a form of the IPv6 protocol to ensure that the data that's getting sent, data packets from one computer system to another, are the correct packets, that there's nothing wrong with the packet. So that same equation that's there in the internet is actually built into the universe as well.
Wow.
I guess kind of maybe going a distance to prove that the universe that we live in is actually kind of more akin to a holographic or a computer simulation reality as opposed to an actual physical reality.
I keep hearing that we are living in a matrix, literally in a matrix, just like the movie.
Yeah, I definitely don't doubt it in one way, shape, or form. I liken the universe, again, as a computer system, and we are basically the users of these meat suits that we're wearing. You know, these are our computer systems that we're using to interact with the digital world, essentially. That's kind of the way that I look at things. I kind of weird, but I'm into computers a lot, so that's just my own brain kind of references that way, you know.
I have read articles where that doctors and a couple of scientists did this research about where is our memory. And a lot of the first things people think of that our memory, a lot of people believe that it's in our brain. And they found that the brain really is more of an antenna than it is anything else, that the memory resides within the body. And they were able to substantiate that by showing different examples of how people would get like a heart, and they wouldn't like a particular thing before they got their heart transplant or a liver or whatever. And afterwards, they would like, you know, something that they really didn't care for before, only to find out that the donor liked that. So that memory, you know, came with the organ as well, and caused that person to change. So they found that the brain is actually more of an antenna, more of a receiver than it is of a memory module, so to speak.
Absolutely correct. And one of the things, too, if you look into a lot of the research that's done, they discovered that there are many, many brain cells in the heart, that the heart actually has many brain cells within it.
Wow.
As well as other organs, too.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
there are brain cells in the heart?
There's brain cells in the heart, yeah.
Wow.
Still blowing your mind all kinds of ways tonight.
I'm glad you're on the show tonight. I learned something new. I learned a lot of things new tonight. Wow.
I think that the reason why people have always attributed the heart to be the kind of the center of emotions is literally because our heart is in control of our emotions. You know, when you get sad, where do you feel it? You feel it right there in your chest, right there in your heart. You feel glad and happy. Well, you get that whole body up feeling, you know, and it stems right there from the heart. I think that is actually the emotional control center of our bodies.
Wow.
I think that one thing that science does wrong is they have things backwards. Science looks at things like this. They look at it as the universe is comprised of matter. And out of that matter and energy comes the human body, you know, that has evolved basically to interact with the matter and the energy that's surrounding us. And that then out of that brain that's inside of that body, we have developed a consciousness to be able to consciously interact with everything that's around us. I think that's backwards. I think that consciousness is actually everything. And that out of that consciousness, we are basically forming a body and brain to be able to interact with what is perceived in that consciousness. And then out of that brain and body, the brain, comes the ability to interact with the matter and the energy that's around.
I'm kind of agreeing with that second one that you said. I believe that, like I said earlier, there are scientists, these articles that I've read, that scientists have gone beyond the atom, and they found that beyond the atom, the only thing left is consciousness. That there is this distinct consciousness that is the foundation of everything. How do the planets know where to be where they are? Where does the energy come from to power the sun? Where does the energy come from that's supposed to take our planet and have it revolve around the sun, and as it revolves around the sun, it rotates as well, and holds the moon in place? All of that, all the underlying of all of that, is this consciousness that they found.
Yeah, absolutely. You can think about things in this way too. Everything is energy. You know, nothing is solid, nothing is real, really, when it comes down to it. The chair that you guys are sitting in, the headphones or the speakers that you're listening to our voices with, even your hands and your legs and all that kind of stuff, none of that is actually really there. None of that is real. It's just a perception that's there of the energies that are there. So when you think about things in those kind of terms, you can start looking at reality as being closer to real, as opposed to this meat suit that we're wearing. This meat suit that we're wearing, it's not real. It's not really even there. It's only the conscious perception of it that makes it real. I'll give an example of how this works. So your nose is always in your vision, okay? But your consciousness is not always aware of the nose because it's not important. It's not important. So does it actually exist when you're not thinking about it or concentrating on it? Frankly, no, because it's not in the consciousness. And whatever's not in the consciousness is not actually real because it's just energy. So the only time that you ever notice your nose is either when you consciously seek it out or or something goes wrong with the energy that's there. And then you'll start noticing it. The same with the rest of your body. Okay, your legs. Now, think about your legs for a second. Now, think about the fact that you didn't think about your legs 30 seconds ago. And did they really exist until you actually consciously thought about them and I mentioned them? No, technically they didn't because you weren't aware of them. And since your consciousness wasn't aware of them, it didn't exist.
Well, you're saying if you aren't conscious of something, it doesn't exist?
Correct.
I don't know about that. If you're not conscious
now,
of
here's
something.
The thing. Well, here's the thing, Rascala. Everybody has a consciousness. You see, so everybody's consciousnesses, we've all basically agreed to interact with each other. But it's the energies that we send out via this consciousness that allows that interaction. So let me give an example, okay? Whenever you feel something or you react to something, for instance, you're sending out a signal of energy. You know, you're manipulating the energy around you to conform to what your consciousness is perceiving. So again, let's take anger for an example, okay, as a simple one. When you feel angry, that emotion, it causes the energy around you to vibrate at a certain frequency. You're manipulating that energy to vibrate at a certain frequency, and you're kind of sending that signal out. And it's like a piano string when you pluck it. You know, the string vibrates up and down and back and forth, and that's what makes the sound. Well, when you do that vibration on a piano string, you pluck that piano string, sure, that one string is vibrating, but then all of the other strings that are around it are also starting to vibrate in sympathetic harmony with that vibration that you did. And our energy, our emotions, our interactions with people, they work in the same way. Whatever it is that you're feeling, you're sending out that wave of energy, that signal to all of those that are around you, and they start feeling it too.
Well, I can relate to that because, you know, I fiddle with the guitar, and I know that when you hit certain notes, there are octaves of that notes, or they call them sympathetic octaves or something.
Yeah,
where,
sympathetic harmony, yeah.
Yeah, where they will vibrate. They may not vibrate as strong as the actual octave would vibrate, but they actually do vibrate. They're affected by it. So if what you're saying is correct, and I believe is accurate, Nikola Tesla referred to everything as either energy or vibration.
Right.
So if that's happening around us, and I go back to the law of attraction, that's probably, you know, one of the basis of the laws of attraction is how you're vibrating is what you're having sympathy, you're attracting that into your life. So if you're vibrating at a lower level, you're going to continue to get more lower level crap into your life. So yeah,
exactly.
I go along with that.
That would be exactly correct. That's the way that I look at it too. Yeah, and you know, I could be off base with it, but that's kind of what feels correct to me, you know, overall. And I've done a lot of ruminating on this kind of stuff over the years. So, you know, trying to figure out what fits, you know, what's going on that fits with all of this. Because there's a lot of things that without something like that going on, it really can't be explained very well, you know?
Yeah.
Like I said, everything is consciousness. So we ourselves are consciousness, and we are, by conscious agreement, I guess you could say, interacting with those that are around us. They have to be agreeing to interact with us. We agree to interact with them. And, you know, to me, it's all God. You know, really, when it comes down to it, it's all God. We're all basically droplets of consciousness of this being that we call God that is experiencing everything that it's possible to experience because it wants to experience everything that's possible to experience.
Right.
So without being these individual conscious ourselves, we would be very boring, you know?
Yeah. Yeah,
it would all be the same experience with God.
I listened to this psychic give his interpretation of God, and he said, he kind of presented it in a questionable kind of way. He said, what if God was all of us, and in all of us he wants to have whatever experience it is that you are experiencing, because this is his can't remember the word that he used, but this is basically his makeup. This is what he is. The whole purpose of everything is to experience. So even what you and I would think of as bad, that is it's written down as an experience. It's put down in a database, if you will, of experiences. Yeah. And it's God living through each one of us. Each one of us is having that experience, and then that experience is somehow stored somewhere. Where I've heard of this thing called the Akashic Records, and Edgar Cayce was supposedly able to access this library, if you will, of absolute knowledge that tells you about everything, the future, the past, the present, everything.
Because it's all obviously existed and happened.
Yeah, yeah. So,
I call it the consciousness field myself, but yeah, there's others that refer to it as the Akashic Records, and yeah.
So there is a, according to these people, and if you think about if you see some of the things that Edgar Cayce did, it was amazing. This man would put himself into a trance. He could heal people from distance, was not a problem. He could be hundreds or maybe even thousands of miles from somebody, go into this trance, and then find out what's wrong with this person, and then prescribe a remedy for it. One of them that comes to mind was somebody did something to their eyes, and they were going to be blind. And the doctor said, there's nothing we can do. You're going to be blind. And he went into one of his trances, and he told him to put, I think, acid, some kind of acid. And the doctors were horrified. No, you can't do that. They'll burn his eyes out or something. And the guy believed in Edgar, and he did it, and son of a gun, his eyes were restored again. So all of this stuff that we're talking about, there's, according to Edgar, and the evidence is there, is recorded somewhere. It's actually recorded. It's written somewhere. So having said that, is that being changed because this is being changed? Or maybe, because you said earlier there's a multiverse, maybe for our universe it's recorded, and then for each other universe it has its own version of the recording, but it's recorded somewhere where people in the right framework can go access this information. I truly believe that one of the ways that we access this information is through the pineal gland. But because of the knowledge that these people that are running everything want to withhold from us, they've devised a way for us to be dumbed down, if you will. And through that dumbing down, we have had this gift that has been given to us at birth stolen from us through the use of fluoride. And that's calcifying this gland, which is the spiritual gateway to all of this stuff that we're talking about, that gives us information that is recorded, information of the future, information of the past, information to help heal people, information to give you peace of mind. All of that is available to us, but it's being withheld from us because of a small group of people who feel that it's their duty to take care of us, the herd, if you will, the useless eaters, as we have been referred to from time and again, to cull the herd when they feel that it's necessary, which is what they're doing now. They're slowly killing off the population. They want to get it down to a very small number in comparison to how many people are here now. And then they believe that once it gets down to that small number, we will all be controllable to the point where we will just be the slaves. The entire planet will be turned into a huge Disney World, and because of their ability and the power that they have, they will get to enjoy it while we clean up their feces. How's that?
You're definitely on the right track. You're definitely on the right track. That's exactly what I see too. I got a couple of points to make. Do we need to take a break here real quick? Or?
Oh, welcome back. It is the Red Pill Reality Show. I am your host, Riscala. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you for taking the time to listen in and allowing me to share with you the information that I find, my opinions, the facts that I run across. And tonight has been an extra special night for me because tonight I have Ira Robinson with me, and he is sharing with all of us some of the knowledge that he has with regard to this thing called the Mandela Effect. And this is something that I literally stumbled across just a couple of days ago, and shook me to the very foundations of my being, actually questioning whether I'm actually living in this reality or some other reality with the information that was just kind of like a bombshell. So anyway, I am honored and privileged to have you listen, as well as to have Ira with me tonight. Ira, are you still on the line with us, Ira?
I am indeed.
All right. So we were talking about The Simpsons and how sometimes they use The Simpsons to bring messages across as a speaker, so to say. In your estimation or in your experience, is there anywhere else that we see this small group of people, this elite group that as they call themselves, the Illuminati, giving us information? And do you think that it is actually them who is responsible for this, or could it be that we know that there's aliens here? Is it possible that aliens are going back and changing this, or is this thing, this CERN, this collider, is it causing the necessary transactions, if you will, that are required for other realities to literally be incorporated into ours? Because I feel that, with what I've learned just in the last 2 days, and this one that we have spoken about repeatedly tonight, this Bible scripture about the lamb and the lion laying down with the lamb, I wonder how I can't even put into words how much deeper is it? I mean, we've seen now, you've pointed out 4 or 5, maybe 6 things that are clearly something has been changed, but how much deeper does it really go? And what really, knowing these people and knowing how they are, what is really the reason that they're doing what they're doing? To me, these people don't do anything unless it's got something nefarious behind it. They are just evil, evil incarnate, if you will. So if they're the ones who are responsible for this going on, why are they doing what they're doing? Any idea, any input for that?
Well, I agree with you 100% that they definitely do not have an agenda that is good for us in mind. They absolutely want to rule. And if it is them that's behind it, that's the most important thing to bear in mind, that we need to be aware of and beware of. Because they do not have us and any kind of altruistic type of thoughts in their mind as far as we are concerned. We're cattle to them. And we're actually lower than cattle to them.
Yeah.
They have so many resources and so much wealth that to them, we're probably less than ants. They're such psychopathic and sociopathic thinkers that there is no empathy or emotional content in them towards us. And you can tell that from the way that they talk, the way that they act, and the things that they do. There's just no doubt about it. If it's not a profit motive that's behind it, it's really hard to see them doing anything, to say the least. Now,
that's sad, but that's true.
I think that it is possible that there may be an extraterrestrial type of thinking behind all of this, and I'll tell you the reason why. One of the other Mandela effects that I've been exposed to is actually our placement in the galaxy. So let me ask you this question. When you were growing up and as you're, gaining knowledge throughout your life, do you remember where we are in the galaxy? Like, can you describe basically where we're at?
I thought that our universe was like towards the center of the galaxy, as I remember it. Am I wrong?
Like our solar system towards the center of the galaxy?
System, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
we were close to the center of the galaxy.
Okay, so in my memory of things, and in the memory of many, many others, we are our Earth, our solar system, is way out on the outer part of the spiral galaxy on one arm called the Sagittarius arm of the Milky Way galaxy.
What?
However,
no, that's not no.
However, the reality that we're in now is much more akin to what you're thinking of, where it's actually in between the outer part of the galaxy and the middle part of the galaxy, actually on the Orion spur of the galaxy.
Yeah.
So there are some of us that remember it one way, and then some of us that remember it the other way. Even those that experience the Mandela Effect have this, alternate type of thing as well.
I saw something while you're on this, because I want to mention this while I'm thinking about it. I saw another post today about the map. Have you seen changes in the maps where they're showing Saudi Arabia as a huge island? Huh?
Yeah, I was actually going to get into that myself too. That's another one of the Mandelas. Let me finish as far as the planetary thing you turned here real quick. Tied into this is another question. Look back on your memory. And everybody that's out there, please look back on your memory. Don't Google. Just look back on your memory. What color was the sun in your memory?
Orange.
An orangish color?
Yeah.
Okay. So in my memory, it is very much more an orange kind of color as well. Almost kind of a yellow-orange type of color. A very warming kind of color. You could look out light, and it was kind of almost a yellowish cast to the light when it was bright sunlight. At least to my memory.
Yeah.
Now, if you look outside and you look at the sun, don't look at the sun directly, but look at the light that's coming from the sun. It's much more white in appearance. It's not the warmish yellow color that it was. Now it's much more white in appearance. Almost like we are in a different solar system on a different planet with a different sun that is closely geographically similar, but not quite. And that's where we get into these geography changes.
There goes my restful sleep for the evening.
So another one of the major geographic changes for me, and this one was a serious Mandela effect for me. I'm a writer. Okay, I write science fiction and fantasy novels, short stories, you name it. I've written. I've written dozens over the years. Now, in fact, I was the #1 bestseller on Amazon. Anyway,
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. The one of the things that I did when I was younger was I wrote a book called Suffer the Children. Suffer the Children was a book about a group of children, many dozens of children, that were taken from Earth and removed from Earth and taken up to a satellite and basically put into a cryogenic sleep as a buffer in case something should happen that the planet basically was not inhabitable for humans for a time. So nuclear war, disease, whatever the case may be, they just kind of planned for this alternative plan B, basically. And so they were placed on these satellites and placed in orbit, left there. The Earth goes through this cataclysmic event, and the children, over 200 years after the event takes place, land on planet Earth, and they land in New Zealand. So the book, the story, I mean, this was basically chapter 1 of the story, right? So the story takes place in New Zealand. Now, in order to write this book, I had to do extensive studies on New Zealand. I mean, I researched New Zealand like crazy. So I knew a lot about it, knew the geography, knew everything that I could figure out, about New Zealand. So if I look at a map now, New Zealand is no longer in the place that I remember it being, even from the research that I did for this book, Suffer the Children. in my memory, let me ask you this: where is New Zealand in accordance to Australia?
I thought it was just adjacent to it. As I remember it, it was just adjacent to it.
And in which direction?
North, I think it is. Northwest.
Northwest. Okay. So basically, like between Australia and Indonesia.
Yeah.
Okay. In the world that we live in right now, New Zealand is actually in the northern middle of Australia. On the eastern middle of Australia. So it's no longer even closely related to where it once was.
What the hell?
It is actually on the other side of Australia compared to what it was.
Oh, my God. Somebody pour me a drink. Oh, my God.
You're going to need it. So New Zealand literally is in a completely different place than it was. It used to be between Australia and Indonesia, and now it is on the opposite side of Australia comparatively. And if you look at Australia, now think about Australia, remember it on the maps that you looked at, over the years. Australia, the northern part of Australia, do you remember, like, what it looked like? Can you kind of describe it a little bit?
No, I don't recall.
Okay.
What part is referred to as the outback? Is that the northern part? Yeah, I think that is the northern part. Is it?
That'd be the center area of it.
Okay.
At least where we're at now.
Right.
For Australia, the way that I remember Australia, and many others out there do as well, Australia, basically, it kind of almost looked like a mound on the northern side of Australia. Hmm. So you had, on the northern side, it's kind of almost like a little mound was there, okay? But if you look at Australia now, there's like this huge circular chunk that's taken out of the top part of Australia.
Huh?
So even Australia looks radically different from what it once did, in my memory of things.
Wow.
So that brings us to a couple of others, too. Okay, so South America. In relation to South America, can you kind of describe what position it was in correlation with North America?
Like I'm in Florida, so it would be southeast of us, southeast of us. It would follow, continentally, it would follow out of the United States, Mexico, what is that down there? I can't think of what it's called. Belize, all that, and then down into the southern continent, right? Or am I wrong about that?
Yeah, you're pretty close to my memory. Now, in my memory of things, South America was offset from North America eastwards. Like if you were to follow the western coastline of South America and the western coastline of North America, they were not all that far offset from each other.
Yeah.
Like if you draw a straight line straight down, they're not all that far offset from each other, right?
Correct.
Well, now if you look, they're almost the western side of South America is almost in line with Texas.
What?
Yeah. So it's been shifted much further east than it once was.
So now the question is, what is being represented? Is that accurate, or is that a misrepresentation in order to, more psyops on it? It's a never-ending story with these people. So,
that's a possibility.
I mean, like I told you earlier, I saw this map, and Saudi Arabia is now an island. What are you talking about?
Yeah. When did Saudi Arabia become an island? Exactly.
Holy crap.
Exactly. Cuba, since you're down near Florida, okay, or you're in Florida, you're not that far away from Cuba.
No.
Do you remember about how big Cuba was?
How big?
Yeah, how big is Cuba?
In my memory, it was about as long as Florida is, and Florida, I think, is 900 miles, maybe a little more, but narrower, much narrower.
Yeah, thinner, but about the same length, right?
Yeah, roughly.
Well,
a little longer, maybe
it.
slightly longer.
Yeah, okay. So now if you look at it, it's actually a lot longer than it once was, and it almost cuts off the Gulf of Mexico.
Wow.
Like it almost makes it so the Gulf of Mexico only has like one little exit, basically.
So I'm wondering now, because we've been lied to about so many things, has it been like this all along, or is this actually a different reality now that we have shifted into as we are experiencing our lives? It's got.
Now, my personal take is that it's a reality shift. That's
Wow.
my own personal take.
Wow. Before our very eyes. I mean, I'll tell you what. I know to some people this sounds kind of corny, but this really freaks me out. This is just happening before our eyes. Our very reality. Change.
Literally at this point, you cannot trust even your own memory.
Wow.
Because of this.
That just. So you have an idea of why I wake up on Friday morning questioning my sanity. I was really going just raking myself over the coals trying to figure out what in the hell is going. Can this really be? Is this possible? And I don't. It's difficult to wrap my mind around it. I don't know about others, but it's. As I said earlier, I've had different experiences in my life, and I don't know. Nothing compares to this. This is like completely out of the blue for me. This is almost like finding out that night that I found out what 9/11 was really all about. Well, what it wasn't about. I don't know that anybody will ever know what it was all about, but I know what it wasn't about. And that.
Well, I'll tell you what, Riscala. Speaking of 9/11, here's one of the things that I've noticed as far as this whole Mandela Effect thing is. I have noticed that it seems like it was right around that time period that this whole Mandela Effect thing started to really form. Like if I look back on memories and things, it's almost like it was in that zone of things that the tweaks began. But I definitely am with you with what you're saying. I was the exact same way when all of this stuff first started happening to me too. It's a complete shift in reality. Like I said,
wow.
Even at this point, you can't trust your memories. It's like they have now figured out how to invade our brains and tweak our memories to fulfill whatever desires they want to have. So are we going to wake up one day and find out, oh yeah, David Rockefeller has been ruling us all along? He's at the White House right now. He's king.
Yeah.
Holy
crud.
That's the kind of stuff that you have to really come to terms with, is that's a possibility with all of this.
As if it weren't bad enough that they have their fingers in almost every aspect of our lives, that we have little of ourselves left, with regard to our ability to have privacy or our rights. They intrude into every avenue they can. I really thought this was off limits. I had no idea. I'm telling you, it's like this is literally like a shot in the groin, in the spiritual groin, if there is such a thing, where you're just kneeling and going, oh my God, am I going to recover from this? What am I?
Yeah,
this is like unbelievable.
Yeah. Oh yeah. By the way, as far as South America goes, a couple of people mentioned this in the chat room, and I forgot to mention this. South America as well is about twice as big as it once was as well. I mean, it's much larger, overall.
And Africa,
even Florida,
Africa, I saw a map where they represented Africa like much larger than I've ever seen it. That it was far bigger than it was represented to me. So I'm wondering if like you're saying, you think it's the reality. I'm wondering if it's a lie that just because technology is catching up, we're able to have these different ways of looking at the planet. Or we think again, we're being deceived from so many angles. Who knows if what we think we're looking at Google Earth? Who knows what you're looking at? That could all be a simulated program for all we know.
Absolutely could. You could be absolutely right. I'm not saying that I'm 100% correct with all of this. I'm just saying that's what feels best to me but everybody else has come to their own terms with all of this too.
Wow.
And, so, I mean, everything is possible. I never exclude any kind of possibilities because, again, like I was talking about earlier with the quantum mechanics stuff, everything literally is possible. So I could be way off base with the things that I'm talking about with this stuff, too. And you could be absolutely right with the way that you're, as far as your mode of thinking is. Again, though, I've kind of dealt with it for a longer period of time. And when I started on things, I kind of had the exact same thoughts, too, that there had to be somebody that was behind it, as opposed to at this point in time, I've kind of come to terms with a lot of different things. And I've seen a lot of things that are very, very, very weird with all of this. And so it's kind of like, I don't know. I'm not totally on board anymore with that portion of things. Let me give you another example, and this might give you maybe a better way that I'm looking at this, okay? This one is another very personal one with me. So I hate ketchup, but I love mustard. I can't stand ketchup. I really can't even stand the smell of it. The only time I'll ever eat ketchup is maybe once in a 5 or 10 year period on a French fry, if the French fry is super dry and I need to cover up the taste of it or something, or on meatloaf. I like it on meatloaf, but everything, and if you wanted to do tomato soup on, or not tomato soup, but tomato paste on it instead of ketchup, I'd much prefer that. So, ketchup has kind of like been the bane of my existence. I've always hated it. But I love mustard. Now, my wife and I, we've been together for a very long period of time, and we've known each other for an even longer period of time. She has been with an Ira that loves ketchup and hates mustard. She remembers there was a time period for about a year that she was with an Ira that could not stand mustard but loved ketchup. And yet, I, in my own memory of things, have never liked ketchup, can't stand the stuff, and love mustard. So, explain to me how...
So is it her memory, or is it your memory, or does she really experience it? And it has been wiped from your memory. See, that's, again, I'm not going to be resting again tonight. This is so. And there's other experiences too like that as well. That's the most dramatic one that comes to my mind. But there's been other experiences where I remember things that have happened in our relationship or things that have gone on that she doesn't remember, and then there's things that she remembers that I don't remember. And they are both. I mean, I have memories of certain events where the memory is exactly one way, but she remembers it in a completely different way, but both of us are correct. And the same thing has happened with other family members, other friends of ours, where we've all experienced these different things. Like I'll give another example. My brother Joe, who's my co-host on Brothers in Arms, and he does his own show on Friday nights now, the Duct Tape Nation. He and I have been friends for 20 years now, and we talk all the freaking time. I mean, we're always, gabbing with each other about whatever happens to come to mind. Well, he used to drive truck. He was an over-the-road truck driver. And we would talk for, 2-3 hours straight sometimes about whatever, just to keep him awake, basically, keep his mind conscious and active so that he's not, falling asleep on the road. Right.
So we had many experiences where we would have conversations that I would distinctly remember the exact conversations. I could tell them word for word what the conversation was. I've got that kind of memory. When somebody speaks to me, I can remember basically verbatim what's been said. It's just a tweak of my brain, basically, I guess. Some people do that with pictures. I suck at it with pictures. But anyways, I remember the distinct conversations that went on. And yet then when I would speak to him the next day or the next week, it was like the conversation never happened. To him.
Wow.
He doesn't remember anything about the conversation, and yet we have a duplicate conversation that ends up going on. He'd start talking it, and I'd be like, we just had this conversation last week. No, we didn't. Well, yes, we did. What day was it? It was Wednesday. I didn't even talk to you on Wednesday.
Wow.
You see what I mean? It was that kind of thing going on. So again, outside of us being either crazy or liars, how do you explain this type of thing? The only way that I can come up with it is that reality has shifted.
I heard of this theory that there is a there's a dual. I'm trying to remember how they expressed it. It's like there's two of us living at the same time.
A doppelganger kind of.
Yeah, and a parallel universe, I think is how they refer to it, and that everything is almost identical in both, and that there are times that we cross over. And, and during
there are places very thin.
Yeah, and we cross over, and it's literally like when you're on. If you've ever seen those cars that race in a figure eight, they go through a crossover, so they go across each other, and at that point where they cross, it's like that point in time, what we call time, could be, they theorize it could be anywhere from a millionth of a second to the rest of your life. They don't know how it works, but they think that that's possible. That may be what's happening to us, that we're in a period where we're crossing between these two. Like you said earlier, it's another, it's almost identical to ours except for just a few small changes here and there. One of the other things I saw, I think this was in the video as well. I used to watch the Brady Bunch all the time. There wasn't hardly ever not miss the Brady Bunch. Yeah, and they showed this thing about the Brady Bunch hour, or happy hour, something like that.
The Brady Bunch variety hour.
That's what it was. Yeah, okay, the variety hour, happy hour. Yep. You can tell when I'm ready, man. Oh boy. So I'm looking at the characters, and they look almost the same, but it's not the same people. They're lookalikes. I would refer to them to. That's not, but they're referring to them as the Brady Bunch. So was that something that was that a spoof? Because that. Well, we're told now. I don't know how accurate this is, but we're told that as I was growing up, we thought one of the Beatles was killed. There was an album where the front of the album, the Beatles were walking across a street, and one of them was barefooted, and somehow that represented that one of them had died, and they had this song about this new band member, blah, 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 and it was a big whoop-de-doo, and if you played the record backwards, it would say, number 9, somebody, Paul McCartney's dead, blah, blah, blah. So now Ringo says that really happened. All of that is really true. So I'm wondering how much of that is the Mandela Effect.
Within the theory, it's absolutely fitting right in with it.
How crazy, because he's coming forward now and saying that, that really did happen, that Billy Squire, Billy, whatever, I can't think of the name, they introduced him in a song, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, and and here he is, Billy, I can't, anyway, so whoever that character is that they introduce in that song is actually somebody who, according to Ringo, took the place of the real Paul McCartney and ended up playing the part so well that they kept him as Paul McCartney from that point forward. And this man took on Paul McCartney's identity and is now who we call Paul McCartney. Right, exactly. The Brady Bunch Variety Hour, just for your edification and for anybody else that's out there, the Brady Bunch Variety Hour, it was basically about 20 episodes were aired for a 2-year period of time. The people that are in it, they are the same characters. They are the same actors that played on the TV show, except for Jan, they replaced her. And Al? Yeah, I think Alice's guy, whatever his name was, I can't remember. He was replaced by a different character, a different actor as well. This thing aired for about 20 episodes over a 2-year period of time. It was very popular. People loved it, but then it was canceled. And it aired up until about 1980, if I remember correctly. So definitely not a parody, definitely not a spoof. It was absolutely real in this reality. But I don't remember it ever happening, and I was a big TV watcher during that period of time, and I loved the Brady Bunch, so I watched everything Brady. I had. I don't recall ever seeing that. So it did not exist in the reality that I was in. So if this doesn't cause someone to question their very own being, wow. It is. It's mind warping. It's just it's something that it's somewhere in my experience of this thing that we called life. I wasn't prepared to deal with this. I really wasn't, and it kept popping up and popping up. And I'm one of the first to tell you things don't happen by accident. There's not a coincidence.
Right.
There's a reason for things happening. There's a reason why this kept popping up in my life, and there was somebody's trying to wake me up to what's going on. I don't know that I'm too happy about, being awakened at this point.
Well, you were speaking about the twin thing there a little bit ago, and I have actually a personal experience with that as well. If you want to hear it,
yeah.
So some years ago, my friend Laura, we were best friends for many years, and she came to my house one day and smacked me upside the head, saying, "Why didn't you tell me hi?" I'm like, "What the heck are you talking about, Laura?" She goes, "Well, why didn't you tell me hi when you saw me earlier?" And so the story basically was that she was at a mall, and she saw me there. She was waving hi. I looked right at her, kind of glanced her up and down, and then just kept walking away. Well, here's the thing. I never left the house that day.
Wow.
But she swears up and down it was me. It was and wearing the same clothes that I was wearing when she came over to my house.
Wow.
So she literally saw what would be a duplicate of me. Maybe she crossed over into that other kind of parallel universe you're talking about,
There were this article that I had read about this, where this crossover point is. They were saying it could be literally for a millionth of a second, or it could be for the whole rest of your life.
Yes.
They don't know
yes,
why.
Absolutely.
They don't know how. They don't understand. They just, they believe that this happens. So
there are many places in the world that the lines between realities are very thin, and it is definitely possible to cross over between them. Definitely. So it may be something like what we're discussing here, that the people that are having this whole Mandela effect may have been on one original reality or one original parallel world, and this one is, we basically all fell into it, or kind of walked into it at one point or another and have found our way into this one. Again, that's entirely a possibility.
Wow.
I have another Mandela effect one for you.
Yeah.
So let me do this one for you here. The movie Snow White. You remember the movie Snow White?
Vaguely.
The cartoon. Okay, so popularized, one of the things that's very popular to say is the phrase that the witch says to the mirror. Do you remember what that is?
The phrase the witch says to who?
To the mirror, to get its attention.
Oh yeah, mirror, mirror on the wall. Who's the loveliest one of all, or who's the most
fairest one? Yeah, but close enough. Yeah. So there are many, many people that remember it as mirror, mirror on the wall. My daughter, Bethany, my eldest daughter, she loves Snow White. She loves everything Disney. She's obsessed with everything Disney. She watches the movies over and over and over again. She remembers it as mirror, mirror on the wall. However, if you watch the movie, and you can go to YouTube, you can look up a clip exactly of this. I would play the audio, but I don't know if it would come through very well on the cell phone here. But the audio now, what's said is magic mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all. So it was from mirror, mirror on the wall, which is what all of us remember, to magic mirror on the wall.
Wow.
And it's always in this reality been magic mirror on the wall.
Wow. Holy moly.
So the explanation for all of this that I have, as far as those that are out there that remember things, like this as the magic mirror instead of the mirror, mirror, and they say you're just misremembering or something along those lines, those people are from this reality. So for them, it has always been this way because it's always been this way in this reality that we're in.
So what would be interesting is to try to figure out when all of this, like you said earlier, you seem to feel that this at least was becoming more to light, if at the bare minimum, during the time of around 9/11. It would be very interesting because 9/11 was a shock to the entire world. You know, to those who didn't know, to those who truly didn't know. What were you saying? Say it again.
Oh, I was just going to say it's definitely a quantum event. That's for sure.
So possibly, it could have been a trigger of some sort to start the ball rolling, if you will, and then accompanied by the technology of this CERN collider, that kind of helping it along, if you will, being fuel for the fire, you know, sort of say. The combination of all of that is causing the realities that we have to combine. You know, it's happening in my mind that it's happening so quickly in my mind I can't word it out. Does that make sense? Almost like that we're no longer crossing, we're actually combining, and that it is our consciousness that is combining with this other reality. Those of us that were on one where it was one way and now we are finding ourselves on another, it's our consciousness has somehow transitioned.
Yeah, has transferred from the one to the other. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
I think that's correct. See, okay, this kind of goes into something else that I like to talk about sometimes. It's not necessarily Mandela Effect related, but it's another thing that I talk about as far as how reality works. Okay. But I do think it aligns with this whole Mandela effect theory, because everything I do has to align with it somehow, right? Mm-hmm. So I look at things like this, okay? If you want to change your life, the way to change your life is to cause things to go into motion. So we know that through the law of thermodynamics, for instance, is, you know, energy is never created or destroyed, it just changes. And also one of the other laws of energy is the conservation of energy. Things at motion tend to stay in motion. Things at rest tend to stay at rest. Well, if people are not doing anything to change their lives, they're always going to be at rest because, again, we're all energy, right? So we're not doing anything to transform the energy into something else, you know, to change anything else. Well, again, all realities exist. So there is a reality where, for instance, if you want to own a 5-bedroom house with a pool outside and your 2.5 kids and your 3.8 cat, there is a reality where that exists because everything exists at all times, right? So what you can do is, instead of just putting up a vision board or something like that and saying, okay, this is my dream, I want it to happen, and that's what people think they do, you know, that's what people think that they can do to get that reality to happen. What needs to happen is you need to basically put forward something in motion. So that might mean changing a job, or that might mean, being nicer to the person down. Whatever the case may be, something in your life needs to change to tweak the energy so that it starts moving and flowing, so that you, in this conscious you that you are at this moment in time, are aligning yourself with that reality where that thing exists. And so you then become that conscious participant in that reality, eventually. But there are versions of you. There are other Riscalas. You could look at yourself as being Riscala Prime, but there's also Riscala 2, there's Riscala 3, there's Riscala 18,545,000, whatever the case may be. All of these versions of you do exist because all realities exist. But you're just conscious of this one in specific because this is where your consciousness is focused.
I just had a sickening thought. You mean that there's a reality where Bush is actually a real person and kind to people? That's impossible.
Yep. I know it's hard to think of, but it's true.
And Hillary. Could you imagine Hillary in another reality? Holy moly.
There's realities where she's already president.
Holy crud.
There's realities where she's already... Look, let me put it to you this way, too. We know that time doesn't work in the way that we normally think of it working. It's not linear. Time really in reality doesn't exist. It's just a construct of our minds to deal with what we're having around us, right?
Right.
Well, these other universes, these other realities, they could be in different time frames than what we are in this one currently. So there may be a reality where they're 5,000 years ahead of time from what we are here, and yet all of history has played out there in the same way that it would here. Okay? So they're just ahead time-wise, but no events are different, if that makes sense to you. So what's possible with all of this, and this kind of goes again into weird esoteric-y kind of ways of thinking, and I could be completely off base with all of this too, but this is perfectly possible according to what we know and understand of reality. It's possible that those people that are out there that do predictions or prophesy and that they don't come true, if they're not complete shills, okay, I'm not talking about the ones that are complete shills or you know, charlatans with this all, but I'm talking about the ones that do it on a legitimate basis. They actually did see this future event happening, or they actually did, you know, experience it for those that are claiming to be time travelers, for instance. Okay. With these things, what I think happens is people are actually taking a peek across the border into this other reality that's ahead of time, you know, ahead of us in time. But they're seeing what's going on in that reality, and they know if things continue on the reality that we're in right now, it's going to align with that reality, and it's going to come true. All the horrors, all the goods, everything else. Okay. So then things might get tweaked here a little bit, so the prophecy ends up failing, but it didn't actually fail. We just aligned with a different reality and crossed over into that one instead. So the people who think that they're time travelers, for instance, they may not actually be traveling through time. What they may be doing is they are actually from one of those future time coded realities, and they fell into ours in one way, shape, or form.
Wow. Okay, hang on to your thought. I'm going to take a last break here.
Okay.
Bear with me just a minute. You are listening to the Red Pill Reality Show, and I am your host, Riscala, coming to you from sunny South Florida on the LNM Network. Thank you for taking the time to listen in tonight. We have, I've had the honor and the privilege to have Ira Robinson with me, and we have been discussing the Mandela Effect. This is something that really shook me to my core, and I'm sharing this with you because I believe it's earth-shattering to me. I'm just curious, really, if it's earth-shattering to you as it is to me, to find out that the very reality that we live in is actually being changed as we are living it, and the history as we remember it is actually shifting and transitioning into something different than what we vividly remember or what we were taught. Not that we were taught differently, that it's actually shifting. The reality is shifting. That writing in books, writing in the Bible, could actually change from saying one thing to something completely different. So as we're at the last part of the show here, I've got Ira back on the line. I hope, Ira, you still there?
I am indeed.
All right, let's kind of pick up where you left off there.
Sure. So, okay, I want to get into a little bit of the creep factor with this stuff. This is where I find things to be both creepy and fascinating at the same time. So you remember my ketchup story.
Yep.
Okay, so what this means, what this really comes down to, is that the woman that I'm married to, the Jolene that I'm currently with, is not the Jolene that I started off with. She's not the wife that I knew and loved and married, fell in love with the whole 9 yards. She's not the same person because she's got a different set of experiences and circumstances than I have and the ones that we had as shared memories together. And that includes my other family members that have also, had this type of thing going on. Anybody that I know over the years, any friends and acquaintances, they're not the same ones. They're not the same ones that were in the original reality. The reality prime for me that I started off with. And that's kind of a creepy thought.
Oh, you're saying what you're saying, and my mind is going back to the days of when I was married, telling the person I was married to, who the hell are you? You're not the person I married.
It very well may be that she was not.
Holy moly mama.
And that would go far to explain how different relationships end up going sour sometimes when
crazy.
People change.
That is crazy. So even the person that you think you know, you don't know.
Exactly correct.
You talk about creepy. Oh, jeez.
Like there's a serious creep factor that goes with this whole thing that most people that talk about the Mandela Effect never really talk about. It's never really discussed. But I like to talk about it because I like to make people creeped out,
Wow.
Now, you can fluff it off, like for Jolene and I, we're very close. I love her more than life itself. She is everything to me, okay? And I know I'm the same for her. So even if she's not the same person, it's the same person anyways to me because she's always going to be my Jolene. Okay, she's so no matter the changes, even if she, was to not be the same one, I'm still going to be with her, and I'm still going to treat her as if she was that original one. But that's kind of like a decision that I made in myself and she made in herself to accept all of this and just kind of laugh it off, just, okay, yeah, it's creepy, it's weird, but hey, we can run with it. You know what I mean? But that's the kind of people that we are. And not everybody's like that,
This conversation causes me to wonder what secrets are under the Vatican. What are they really keeping underneath there that they don't want us to know about? I mean, in my experience of this thing called life, whatever you and I end up finding out about, generally speaking, it's the tip of the iceberg. There is so much more. So if they're allowing us to find it, and there's no mistake in my mind, they're allowing this information to come out because they're very good about suppressing stuff. If they didn't want this to come out, it would not come out. There's a reason for it coming out. But the fact that they are able to step into this realm, if you will, is, I mean, that to me that's earth-shattering. I can't even put words to describe how that makes me feel. I thought there was at least an area of my life that was not subject to that. That there's, however small that area is, it was mine. It was my life. It was my reality. And that has been shaken, completely shaken. Wow.
I definitely understand the feeling. I went through it myself. It took me a while to process it. I won't, bite any bones about it. It took me a long time to come to terms with all of this. It was definitely not an overnight thing. When I first started to run across all of this in my mind and discovered all of this, I thought to myself, is nothing really sacred? Because I thought, like you, these memories, this is me, this is who I am, this is my makeup, this is all the experiences that I've gone through make me me. And yet now I discover that the experiences that I've gone through are not actually the experiences that I've gone through. So what does that mean for me? What does that make me? It took a while to come to terms with that stuff,
Wow.
Again, there's such a really big creep factor with all of this that has to be dealt with. And everybody's going to have to deal with it on their own individual levels.
I think,
again,
I think the majority.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think the majority of the people are not going to deal with it. I think they're going to. It's too difficult to deal with. It's cognitive dissonance kind of thing. It's just. I'm telling you, it's difficult for me to deal with. I keep thinking of yesterday morning, waking up and going, okay, really, I'm seriously now. I'm asking myself, are you awake or are you asleep? Because I didn't, the reality, my whole reality got turned completely upside down. I'm looking at this Bible, And the words I know, I'm telling you, as sure as I'm sitting here talking to you, I know that this Bible said the lion will lay down with the lamb. I'm absolutely positive of it. And here it is in my possession, the same Bible 20 some odd years later, and it doesn't say that anymore. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm literally questioning myself. You got this. You're just dreaming. You're going to wake up. It's okay. You're going to wake up. You'll see. Come on, wake up. Wake up. Come on, wake up. And I'm not waking up. I'm like, oh my God, I'm already awake. This is really happening. So it did. It really threw me for a loop. Beyond anything I've ever experienced. In my experience, that's impossible. It's impossible for you to have something in your possession and know that it's in your possession. I mean, unless somebody's playing a really, really good prank, because they would have had to taken, this is a family Bible. This is not a Bible that you carry around with you. It's got people's names, and it's places for people's names and your family tree and all of that. So this is a Bible that was used. It's got a lot of pictures and stuff in it, which reminds me, now I'm going to go look and see, because I think it had a picture of the lion and lamb. I'm going to go take a look. That'll be the next thing. It'll keep me up all night. So anyway, I'm looking at it, and the words are changed. That's in my world. That's impossible. That's impossible unless, again, somebody's playing a trick on you, which I know they're not. Well, in a way, they are. Right. They're playing a really sick, twisted trick on me. They're messing with my mind in a way that I've never been messed with before. I just look at this book and see that these words are not there anymore, and things that I was taught is not being taught according to this book anymore. And it doesn't make sense. I mean, okay, there's a lot of people who have. There was one that I was going to ask you about earlier, and I completely forgot. There was. Anyway, but there's a lot of people who have questions about what we're talking about. This is just an oversight. Like you said earlier, you're just remembering it wrong. We remember it different, or why? How could it be this way if it's written that way? But for those of us who do remember, and I go back to this scripture because I vividly remember the scripture. How is it that this part of my reality is the way that I vividly remember it, and there are people who I call and they vividly remember it. I called, 6 or 7 of my friends. I had one of them look it up right there in their Bible, and it's been their Bible. I mean, these are friends of mine I've known for many, many, many years, and they're looking it up in their Bible and go, yeah, well, I know where it's at. They look it up in the concordance, and the concordance says Isaiah. They go to Isaiah, and they look it up, and they say, well, no, it says wolf. I said, well, don't you think that's strange? And there's a moment of silence there where I know they're getting the aha second. It's hitting them like a ton of bricks, and they're going, yeah, but I remember it saying that. Yeah, I remember it saying it too. So what happened? So without somebody like you that can come along and give some kind of an explanation, I mean, I feel a little better now. Without some kind of an explanation, you begin to question your very sanity. How is that possible? How is that possible that something like that could happen?
Like I was saying earlier, as far as the things that I've experienced and the experiences that me and Zelene have had together, we're either lying, we're crazy, or we're telling the truth, and reality has shifted somehow. I'm putting forth a couple of things that I've posited as possibles as far as the, explanation for it. I could be completely off base with things, but again, for me, it's kind of comfortable. Like you, I had to find a way to be able to sleep at night, and these are the things that I came up with to be able to help me to sleep more comfortably at night. I think one of the things to bear in mind with this, and I have not really talked about this before, so maybe you'll resonate with this a little bit. Maybe the listeners will. I don't know. There was a big thing that was going on over a few years ago where reality was supposed to change. Do you remember that little event? It was a little number called 2012.
Yeah. Yeah.
Reality was supposed to change and everything was supposed to alter. And when 2012 came along and nothing happened, everybody was like, ha, 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 nothing happened. Well,
maybe
now
something really did
we're
happen.
talking about these changes in reality that have happened.
Yeah. Wow.
So maybe
that's the... Maybe that's the shift that they were talking about.
Yep.
Wow.
We may have very well altered into a different reality, a completely different world that's in a completely different spot in the known universe, and now we're here. But for what purpose? I've heard a couple of people say that maybe we've shifted world, and those of us that are remembering these things, like I was saying earlier, I think that a lot of people that remember these have had some kind of experience with the other side in some way, some kind of woo-woo thing that has tweaked the consciousness in that different way to notice things out of the norm. And so I think that maybe some people have posited that we've shifted into this world because this world needed our help. Maybe there's some reason that, this world basically hasn't had the experience of having people like us around, perhaps. So we're here basically to help change the consciousness of the people that are here in this world that we've now found ourselves in. And I like that thought. I don't know how far off base it is, but I like that thought. It kind of gives a positive reason for it all occurring.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I like that thought. I just don't know if I'm willing to pay that price. That's that's where I'm at. I mean, just being brutally honest with you, that's what's happened. Yeah. It seems like those who stand up and try to bring awareness to things that are affecting everybody, and not doing it necessarily for profit, but not for material profit or money kind of profit, but profit for the sense of knowing that it's going to be a better world, are persecuted as though they were criminals. And yeah. As we're talking, my mind is going back and thinking about things that I've said and things I've said on the air. I said, the whole world is upside down, you guys. The whole world is it's like, my God, we don't live in the world that I grew up in. Maybe all of this has been, and I keep going back in my mind, when do I recall all of this, really making a change into this, what I call into this police state, and I think it was 9/11. I do. I think that 9/11 was a turning point for our lives. And after that, everything after that has been a decline with regard to our quality of life and the freedoms that we have enjoyed prior to that. And so,
when you said that the world turned upside down and this is not the same world that you grew up in, you may have been speaking, your spirit may have been speaking truth of things.
Yeah.
This literally is not the world that you grew up in. It's a totally different world, a totally different planet, and a totally different reality.
Wow. Yeah, you said people who experience this, people who are aware of this, or people who have had some kind of extra type of activity in their life, either UFO or paranormal or something like that. I've had, even on Michael's show, I've called a guy up one time and gave him a message. I've had messages repeatedly from what I call the spirit realm, where, I'll get a very strong urging to do something, and later on I'll go, wow. A primary example of that is I used to have this urge to have chili. Wendy's chili, of all things. This is in my ignorant stages of fast food. All I knew, it tasted good, and it filled my tummy, and it wasn't too expensive, and so I pretty much had it almost every day. And in my roamings throughout my service area, I would pass this one particular Wendy's quite frequently, so I would go in there and order a cup of chili. Well, this one day, I got a service call, and I was on my way to the service call, and what happened? Something happened that caused me to think, well, I'll go by and I'll get, I know what it was. I told them that I gave myself about an hour to get there, and it was only going to be about 20 minutes. That's what it was. I said, well, I have enough time. I'll go by and I'll pick up a thing of chili. Well, on the way there, I was probably maybe another 15 minutes to the Wendy's, and it was probably going to be another 10 minutes to where I was going to make the service call. On the way there, I got another call from another client that said, I need your help right away. We're trying to print checks. This is payroll day, and we've got a severe jam. Can you come over and take care of this for me? So I said, okay, I'll just buy. I want to go get the chili, but I'll just go take care of it. I'll go help them. Had I been at that Wendy's that day at that time, there was a shooting there where a man walked into the Wendy's. He walked into the bathroom, walked out, and just started shooting people indiscriminately, just started killing people. I would have been in the middle of all of that had it not been for just a smallest little change in my life for that day. That small little change, that customer call and go, can you please do it? Can you come right now? Because I was asking him, can I do it later this afternoon? I can come by. No, can you please come right now? Because I'm trying to print checks and it's payroll day and I've got to get this done. That urge to go, I'm going to do it later, and then change from that to, okay, I'll just go ahead and do it now, and I'll forget the chili for today. That little decision, as small as it was life-altering for me. How was that? Was that a message from, like I told you earlier, I believe that I get these messages about this whole Mandela Effect. This kept popping up, and I kept putting it aside, and it would pop up, and I'd push it aside. Finally, I said, okay, I'll go listen to it. And now look at the profound effect it had on me. That little decision that I had, was that a message coming from the other side? Don't go into this place. That's not where you're supposed to be today. That's not the place, for you. Go do something, anything else. And then they presented something else for me to do, because I was, I had already made my mind up. In my mind, I saw myself sitting in that Wendy's and eating, having, taking a break, having a chili, and grabbing an iced tea to go and taking off. I had already seen all that in my mind. And had it not been for that small decision to say, okay, I'll just bypass that today and go do something else, I may not be here talking to you right now.
In another reality, the truth of the matter is, in another reality, the Riscala did not listen to that warning and was killed there.
Yeah. Wow.
I'll give you another example that fits right in with this that I think a lot of people out there have experienced. Have you ever been driving down the road and out of nowhere, like a car goes past you, and out of nowhere you get this absolute surety, holy crap, I just died.
Mm.
Have you ever experienced that?
I haven't.
Like
not that particular thought or. Say it again.
Oh, I was just saying, you could envision, you literally have a flash of insight that this car came over into your lane and smashed into you head first. Or you're driving down the road and you get this feeling that you just died or something like that, and a car passes behind you when you went through a green light, bypassing the red light on their side. Yeah. Or, hitting a pole, whatever the case may be. Just out of nowhere, you get this flash that you died somehow.
What happens to me is not so much the dead as I've relived this before somewhere, somehow. I'm reliving this again. I've done this before. I can't tell you how many times that happens to me, where I'm going through something and I go, I've done this before. Why am I doing this again? And it really is, in my mind, it's like you probably just had a dream, and this is just reminding you of the dream. But then later on during the day, and some of these things that happen to me, it really stick with me. One in particular that happened to me is I thought I had a dream. I'm here in Florida, so there's bridges everywhere because we got water everywhere. I'm going across this one particular bridge, and as I go across this bridge, my car stops, and I can't make my car move. And I thought it was a dream. I kept thinking, well, that doesn't make any sense. How could you be going, the car's running fine, gets, running across the bridge, and all of a sudden the car stops and doesn't go anywhere. Now, I guess about 2-3 weeks later, I'm driving in my car, going up this, I guess you could call it a bridge. It's an overpass. And I get to the top. There happens to be a traffic light up there to allow incoming traffic coming off of the expressway. I get to the top, my car dies. The car won't go anywhere. And I'm reliving this moment again, and I'm thinking to myself, you dreamed this before this happened. Then I'm going, no, I lived this, or I've already gone through this. How am I going through this again? And now that I'm recognizing this Mandela Effect, I'm starting to recognize times in my life where this has happened over and over.
Yeah.
Not throughout since I was a kid, but just like within the last 10, 15 years maybe, where things have happened. I'm going, whoa.
What you're talking about here, the kind of like almost deja vu-like experiences. Right. Deja vu fits with this as well, totally. Is the fact that you did once live in a reality where that event did occur, and you're remembering it, but it hasn't occurred here yet. So it was a timeline or a reality where that timeline was just that slightly ahead of things.
Man.
But the events led right up to it. You see what I mean?
So
the death thing, let me hit the death thing here real fast before we run out of time. The death thing, the reason why I brought that up is because in certain realities, what I think happens is that, like the car accident thing that I was talking about, you know, where a car passes you by and, holy crap, I died. Okay. In another reality, you did actually die in that spot at that moment in time. And maybe it was a big enough event that all versions of yourself felt that moment of.
Wow. So maybe another way to look at people who are psychic are people who can tap in to each one of those realities and pick out what's going on.
It's absolutely possible. It fits right in with science with all of this because we're all quantumly entangled with each other. All the versions of ourselves, they are us. It's our consciousness. Our consciousness is quantumly entangled with each other. So all the versions of you that are in all of these other alternative realities, you can tap into and get the experiences and the knowledge of them if you want to, and if you can tweak yourself to be able to do so.
Wow.
I've done it. I know other people that have done it too. And that, I think, completely explains the psychic experience. I don't think that they're, getting some kind of woo-woo factor. I think this is just the way that things are. It's just the way that things have always been, but people have attributed it to some kind of magic. No, I think everybody can absolutely do it. It's just a matter of knowing you can.
Because you're saying with all the realities being possibilities, that not only goes linear, it goes in all directions. Because we could say, okay, there's another reality that we're living right now that is on the same timeline as us, but there's also another reality that we're living that is a month ahead of us, and there's another reality that's 2 months ahead of us. You follow what I'm saying? So it's indefinite, the number of realities that you could be involved in. So if you are someone who can tune in, again, going back to our brains being more of an antenna, if you could tune into a reality that is the same reality that you're experiencing now, but is ahead of you, then you could see the future. And if you do the same thing, but to the same reality, but it's what has already happened, then you could see the past, and you could see people's the things, the actions that are going on in people's lives. If maybe I'm just trying to grasp how this information. I get this information, how is it that I get this information? Maybe, like you're saying, it's the same reality, but it's a reality that's maybe a little clearer, or it's a reality that's a little further ahead or a little further behind, But it's you're able to tap into it, and by tapping into it, you tap into that knowledge.
Absolutely, you're right on track with it. Ruminate on that one, guys. That's a pretty good one, I think. And
that's crazy.
Just bear in mind that this is all forward and backward, up and down. Time itself is not a linear construct. It's not a linear concept. It's forward, backwards, up and down. It's coordinates, just like space. X, Y, Z in space. You got X, Y, Z in time as well.
Wow. Amazing.
And with that, I think much out of time for me. I'll go ahead and get off of here and let you get your final thoughts out here. But Riscala, thank you so much for letting me come on tonight and blow you and your listeners' minds with all this.
I got to tell you, it's going to be a restless night for me again. I want to thank you. I really do. I know that you have this passion to share knowledge, which is a passion that you and I have in common. This is the way that people really become powerful, is to be able to know what's going on around us, to have that knowledge and to share that knowledge. By sharing the knowledge, we not only help other people, we help everybody as a whole. Our entire society becomes better equipped to deal with issues. And I know that you're one who goes out of his way to see to it that the word gets out there and the truth gets out there. Thank you. I appreciate it. And give your show a plug here before you go. When are you on, and what do you talk about?
I go live Mondays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here at LNMRadioNetwork.com. I also air on YouTube. My YouTube channel is youtube.com/C/Open Eyes Network. We do live simulcasts. I also do new videos every day where I talk about stuff like this all the time. that's what my channel is all about, is spreading, like you said, the information. And I'm just grateful to serve. I'm grateful to be of service to everybody. So thank you so much, Riscala, for having me here.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it, man. Thanks for being here for me and watching my proverbial behind the scenes, those times that I couldn't get on the air and you would cover for me. Thank you. I appreciate it. God bless you. Talk to you soon.
Definitely my pleasure. Have a great night, everybody.
And there he goes. My friends, I appreciate you taking the time to listen to us tonight. It has been, for me, truly an eye-opening experience, and I hope and pray that you'll be able to use the information that we presented tonight to better your life, to better your friends' lives. I'm literally still reeling from all of this. How this is something that was just not even close to being on my radar. Something that was, like Ira said, something I thought was kind of sacred, something you don't get into, something you don't touch, a part of your life that you're not allowed to get, that's kind of set in stone, if you will.